And now let's look at the fascinating technology that lies behind wastewater treatment. And the basic idea is that regardless of the details, the real work in wastewater treatment is done by the workhorses of the world, bacteria. Bacteria are not only the oldest, most numerous, most diverse organisms on Earth, they run the planet. Every living system on Earth depends on these tiny, complex beings. Without them, carbon, nitrogen, and other materials would be unavailable to plants and animals. They regulate the temperature and chemical composition of the atmosphere, and without them, the planet would grow too hot to support life. These amazing creatures invented photosynthesis and the ability to metabolize a vast array of chemicals. Various strains can detect light, break down decaying matter, fix nitrogen gas, make food from hydrogen sulfide in place of sunlight, and live at temperatures above boiling or below freezing. And they are the workhorses of wastewater treatment. In any system, no matter what the technical details, there are three stages. Primary treatment removes solids. Secondary treatment removes bacteria and other stuff. And tertiary treatment, or polishing, does the final cleaning and makes the water clean enough to release back into streams. Here's primary treatment for removing solids, and the wastewater comes into the plant, gets run through some kind of screens out the big stuff, and then sits for a while, and the solid material settles out. These settling tanks are usually what you see when you look at a wastewater treatment plant. They're big, and it takes some time for the settling to occur. The kind of bacteria who do primary treatment are anaerobic, and anaerobic, as we see down here at the bottom of the slide, anaerobic means that they do not need oxygen. They live in places without oxygen. And by the way, that means these little guys are the most ancient of the bacteria. Someday, if you're interested, there's just a fascinating story to the life story of bacteria. So let me know if you're curious. There are issues with things like heavy metals and persistent organic compounds. Some work can be done with bioremediation or phytoremediation with plants, but it is still a problem. In any event, once the solids have settled out, we move on to the secondary stage of treatment, and this is the stage that removes bacteria, and by that I mean pathogens, pathogenic bacteria that are unhealthy. This part of the system is aerobic, and as you see at the bottom of the screen, aerobic means these bacteria live with oxygen. So these little guys developed later in the history of the planet. In any event, this secondary treatment process is the part of the process that uses the most energy if you're in a traditional wastewater treatment plant. Finally, tertiary treatment, and tertiary means third. So we have primary, secondary, tertiary. That means first, second, third. The tertiary treatment is also known as polishing, and this is the part of the treatment that makes water potable, and it makes it clean enough that we can release it into streams. There are various systems for doing treatment. We've just looked at pictures of large wastewater treatment plants. Here's a little one. This is a package treatment plant at the LCC main campus. In rural areas, you will find septic tanks. Again, the work of the septic tank is done by bacteria. And here are some details on this slide 14 for you if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about it. The lagoons at the LCC main campus, which you see in an aerial photograph here, were originally designed as the sewage treatment process for LCC back in the mid-60s. And they did sewage treatment up until 10 or 15 years ago. And when you look at this aerial photo, you can see 3 separate ponds. The big one is primary treatment. The middle one is secondary treatment. The third one is tertiary treatment. And at the end of this tertiary pond, water was clean enough to release into Russell Creek, which flowed right through here. The city of Cannon Beach on the Oregon coast still uses sewage treatment lagoons to treat its city wastewater. And if you go to their sewage treatment facility, I say facility, it's lagoons, here's what it looks like, and they have signage around that explains to you those 3 stages of treatment and how they work. One method of treating wastewater is called a constructed wetland, which we also talked about when we looked at stormwater. And a form of constructed wetland that you will see increasingly occurs in a system called a living machine. And unfortunately, living machines are trademarked and patented. So if you want to install one, you need to go to the company that owns the trademark, which Clatsop Community College up in Astoria did. So here is their wastewater treatment system for their community college. Here's a photograph at Oberlin College. Here's the living machine that treats the wastewater for Oberlin College. Whatever the particulars of the greenhouses that they're planted in, living machines have these 3 general stages, and you'll see these 6 stages. You'll see these 6 kinds of tanks, and they each look a little bit different. And they're carefully engineered to work and operate on their own. They begin with anaerobic bacteria, just like in a wastewater treatment plant. Then there are 2 tanks that have aerobic bacteria. Then the water moves on to a clarifier system, then through a constructed wetland, a gravel wetland, subsurface wetland with plants, and then on to the tertiary treatment with a UV filter. Finally, here is the Port of Portland headquarters up in Portland, Oregon. And Port of Portland means not only the port, but this is the headquarters for the airport. And this headquarters building is certified LEED Platinum. It was Platinum in 2011. Right before they got LEED Platinum, they designed and installed a living machine to do their wastewater treatment. So this is a 200,000 square foot building, and this living machine treats 5,000 gallons per day of wastewater. And finally, here are some sources for you, places where you can go read some maybe not engineering details, but the general workings of wastewater treatment.